China actually reporting a record number of COVID cases on Thursday as Beijing imposes more lockdowns. Let's get right over to Eunice Yoon, who joins us right now from Beijing. The record number of cases, this is really something that is unusual and unique to what you guys have seen to this point.
Yeah, this is a record number of cases. It's at nearly 33,000, which, of course, is very tiny in global terms, and most of them are asymptomatic. I mean, it appears that the leadership is at least officially tolerating this new higher number, but unofficially, we are definitely seeing more frequent and inconsistent lockdowns, quarantines, as well as shutdowns of businesses. Now, the Chinese iPhone city of Zhengzhou is currently in lockdown. It's going to be mostly locked down until Tuesday or so, and this is after violent protests had rocked the Foxconn iPhone facility there. That facility is really important worldwide because it accounts for about 70% of global iPhone shipments, including iPhone 14 models. Now, the company itself had said that it is apologizing for what it described as a technical error in worker pay, which triggered, or at least seemed to trigger, the protests there. Foxconn has been offering about $1,400 for departing recruits, and Apple has sent in staff and says that it's working with Foxconn to address some of the employees' concerns. There are still, though, many questions as to whether or not Foxconn is going to be able to meet its own internal goal to have that facility back up and running as operating normally by the end of this month. Now, outside of Zhengzhou, the lockdowns and other shutdowns continue to hit many other cities, including Beijing. There's been a big fear here that we could see a citywide shutdown and a bit of a pushback by the population. The city of Guangzhou has also just denied that it's going to have a citywide shutdown, but because we have heard these denials by city officials quite frequently over the past several months and into the past year or so, which then is followed by either what's described as a silent period or a shutdown, people are really worried about what could be happening next. And one other thing I want to bring up with you guys that is kind of an interesting development is that the World Cup has been playing here on state TV as well as various channels. And what we're starting to see is the audience being blurred, or that the way that things are shown is that there aren't as many pictures of people in the audience because they're not wearing masks. And in the past several days throughout the World Cup, people here have been asking and complaining on social media about how people outside of China seem to be not wearing masks and not having to worry so much about COVID, and they're raising questions as to why that would be. So interesting that we're starting to see the audiences getting blurred.
Hey, Eunice, from here, it kind of feels like this could be the beginning of the end of zero COVID, whether they like it or not. If it's spreading, and once you get to these levels, we know how it's played out in other areas, years ago, because of just how it kind of spread through the world. Is there an expectation that might be it? Does it feel like it there, or does it feel very different when you're still worried about trying to make sure you have enough food to eat in case you get locked down?
Yeah, I mean, it feels different compared to, say, 3 years ago. And I think one of the fears, I think, that we've been hearing about is the idea that it could either be at a tipping point where suddenly zero COVID goes away, or we could be at a point where the government decides that they don't want that to happen, are going to go back to how things were back in the early days of the pandemic, and that we're going to see even more severe crackdowns and more repression. And that could then be devastating to the economy. There is some difference, though, I think, in terms of the way the population thinks, because back in early 2020, I think when we saw those brutal lockdowns, people were more willing to go along with it because they were feeling that this is a mysterious virus. We're just going to go with whatever the government says. The population here is much more used to the idea of having the government in their lives. So that is a big difference from today, where you're seeing more people questioning, more people wondering what's going on. And then there's just been so much discussion these days over the World Cup. And just because it's just in our faces that everybody out there is not wearing a mask. They seem to be moving on with COVID. And that just hasn't been the case here. So a lot of people questioning zero COVID these days.